The 70s gave us All in the Family and The Mary Tyler Moore Show. But for every hit that ruled the airwaves, there were dozens of flops that crashed and burned before anyone even remembered the characters' names. Some lasted 5 episodes, others barely made it through pilot season. These sitcoms had big stars, huge budgets, and zero chance of survival. Here are 15 disasters that prove even the 70s had terrible taste. Mr. T and Tina, 1976. Pat Morita walked away from Happy Days to star in this absolute train wreck. He played a Japanese inventor who moves to Chicago and hires a scatterbrained American nanny to watch his kids. The whole show ran on tired culture clash jokes and stereotypes that weren't even funny back then. Television critics watched the pilot in Los Angeles and collectively voted it the worst new show they had ever endured. ABC knew it was garbage before it even premiered. According to one writer from Welcome Back, Kotter, the network had already decided to cancel the show before the first episode aired. It got slaughtered in the ratings, going up against The Bob Newhart Show and Emergency. Only 5 episodes made it to air before ABC pulled the plug in October 1976. 4 more episodes were filmed but never shown. The director wasn't even present on set. He gave direction through a speaker system like he was too embarrassed to be associated with it. Holmes and Yo-Yo, 1976. ABC tried to recycle the robot cop gimmick from Get Smart and somehow made it even dumber. Richard B. Shull played Detective Holmes, a bumbling cop whose bad luck kept landing his partners in the hospital. So the police department paired him with Yo-Yo, a 425-pound android disguised as a regular detective. Yo-Yo had a built-in camera that shot Polaroids out of his shirt pocket when you pressed his nose. He could digest explosives with an internal trash compactor, and every time his circuits shorted out, he would repeat the words Bunko Squad over and over until someone smacked him on the head. The jokes were painfully obvious. Holmes tells Yo-Yo to hop to it, so Yo-Yo literally starts hopping. A garage door opener made Yo-Yo spin in midair. The show went up against the Jeffersons and got demolished in 3 months. Only 13 episodes aired before ABC yanked it. Leonard Stern, who produced Get Smart, told the press he hoped Holmes and Yo-Yo would become the next Abbott and Costello. Instead, it became a punchline. John Schuck, who played Yo-Yo, was way better on McMillan and Wife. Supertrain, 1979. This one made history for all the wrong reasons. NBC spent over $5 million just building the train set alone. It was supposed to be a luxury express cutting across America with a different drama unfolding every week. Sounds cool until you realize the writing was painfully thin and nobody cared about the characters. The network promoted the hell out of it. Billboards everywhere, massive ad campaigns, and audiences still didn't show up. The show hemorrhaged money week after week. After just 9 episodes, NBC panicked and tried reworking the cast to cut costs. That never works. It crashed harder than the actual train would have. Critics called it one of the most expensive failures in television history. The only thing worse than the show itself was the ego it took to greenlight it in the first place. Even the special effects couldn't save it. Supertrain became a legendary disaster and a cautionary tale about throwing money at garbage, hoping it turns into gold. Me and the Chimp, 1972. CBS actually greenlit a sitcom about a family man dealing with his pet chimpanzee. That's it. That's the whole show. Ted Bessel starred as a dad whose life gets turned upside down by Buttons, an unusually smart chimp who constantly caused chaos. Every episode was just the monkey getting into trouble, stealing food, breaking stuff, making a mess. There was zero substance beyond watching a chimp wreck a house for 30 minutes. And working with an actual chimpanzee on set caused endless production problems. Animals don't follow scripts. They don't hit their marks. Buttons was probably the most professional cast member, and he still had no idea what was happening. The humor got old fast because there's only so many ways a monkey can knock over a lamp. Audiences tuned out immediately. CBS mercifully canceled it after 1 season in 1972. Bessel deserved way better than this. The whole concept felt like a bad pitch meeting that somehow made it all the way to air. Grady, 1975. Red Fox left Sanford and Son, so NBC tried spinning off the Grady character into his own show. Huge mistake. Grady was never a well-developed character to begin with. He was a side player who worked in small doses. Giving him an entire series exposed how thin the character actually was. The writing didn't help. Every episode felt like filler. No energy, no memorable moments. Just Grady existing in a sitcom that nobody asked for. Audiences who loved Sanford and Son tuned in, hoping for something similar, and got bored within minutes. The show flopped almost immediately and disappeared from memory a few years later. NBC tried capitalizing on a popular show's success without understanding what made that show work. Grady wasn't the draw. The dynamic between Fox and the rest of the cast was. Without that chemistry, the spin-off had nothing. It lasted one miserable season before NBC killed it. Red Fox probably laughed watching it fail. He knew better than anyone that Grady couldn't carry a show alone. The Brady Brides, 1981. Two of the Brady sisters got their own spin-off following them into married life. It could have worked if the writing had any spark whatsoever, but the show leaned way too hard on nostalgia without developing an actual identity. The jokes were bland, the situations were boring, and nobody cared about watching grown-up Brady kids navigate domestic life. The original Brady Bunch worked because of its wholesome family dynamic. This show tried recreating that magic with half the cast and none of the charm. CBS gave it a shot and viewers stayed away. The Brady Brides lasted one season and faded into obscurity. It proved that spin-offs only work when there's real demand. Audiences loved the Brady Bunch. That didn't mean they wanted to watch every single Brady kid get their own series. The show felt like a cash grab that nobody bought. Even die-hard Brady fans couldn't sit through it. Hollywood kept trying to milk the Brady franchise for decades. Hot L Baltimore, 1975. Norman Lear pushed boundaries with hits like All in the Family and The Jeffersons. But Hot L Baltimore went too far for 1975. The show was set in a rundown hotel with a burned-out E in the sign. The cast included undocumented workers, ladies of the evening, and a couple living together openly in defiance of social norms. ABC actually aired disclaimers before every episode warning viewers about mature themes. The Baltimore affiliate refused to air it at all. Despite having a stacked cast including James Cromwell, Richard Masur, and Charlotte Rae, the show couldn't find an audience. People weren't ready for it. The subject matter was too aggressive even by Lear's standards. It became his first major flop and only lasted one season in 1975. The writing was sharp, the performances were solid, but middle America wasn't tuning in to watch a show about society's outcasts living in a flophouse. It was ahead of its time in the worst possible way. Networks wanted relevant programming. This was too relevant. Hot L Baltimore proved there was a limit to what audiences would accept even during television's most daring decade. Blansky's Beauties, 1977. Gary Marshall tried spinning off Happy Days one too many times with this disaster. Nancy Walker played Nancy Blansky, a Las Vegas den mother managing a group of showgirls while raising her two nephews. The show premiered in February 1977 and lasted exactly 13 episodes before ABC pulled the plug. The concept was a mess from the start. Nancy appeared in one episode of Happy Days set in the 1960s. Then her spin-off took place in the 1970s. Nobody explained the time warp and nobody cared. Eddie Mecca played a character who was supposedly Carmine from Laverne and Shirley's cousin, which made zero sense timeline-wise. Scott Baio and Linda Goodfriend were both in this show, and after it got canceled, they jumped straight to Happy Days playing completely different characters. The whole thing felt like Marshall was just throwing actors around his sitcom universe, hoping something would stick. Critics hated it. Audiences ignored it. Even the cast seemed embarrassed. The scripts recycled old jokes that weren't funny the first time. Nancy Walker Show, 1976. Nancy Walker had built a solid following, playing supporting roles on McMillan and Wife and Rhoda. ABC thought that was enough to give her a starring vehicle. They were wrong. The Nancy Walker Show premiered in September 1976 and lasted exactly 12 episodes before ABC pulled the plug. Walker played a Hollywood talent agent dealing with eccentric clients and industry chaos. The premise had potential, but the execution was lifeless. Norman Lear produced it, which raised expectations even higher. That made the failure sting even more. The ratings were abysmal from the start. Audiences who loved Walker in supporting roles didn't connect with her as a lead. The writing was uninspired. The guest stars couldn't save it, and ABC quickly realized they had a dud on their hands. By December 1976, the show was canceled and replaced. Walker went back to supporting work where she thrived. The whole experiment proved that not every beloved character actor can anchor their own series. Sometimes supporting players are supporting players for a reason. The Caluccis, 1977. NBC tried creating an edgy working-class sitcom about a scheming Appalachian family who moves to California to run a gas station. It bombed harder than anything else that summer. David Huddleston starred as J.T. Caluccis, a greedy coal miner who inherits a rundown two-pump station in Nowhere, California. He drags his family west, hoping to get rich through scams and tax evasion. The show wanted to be an edgier Beverly Hillbillies, but came off as mean-spirited and unfunny. J.T. constantly bragged about never paying taxes and looked for ways to cheat customers. His wife, Venus, was overly affectionate to the point of being creepy. Their teenage daughter, Bobby Lou, worked at a fried chicken stand, and they had a German immigrant employee named Oscar who barely spoke English, which the show mined for tired stereotypes. The Caluccis premiered August 3, 1977 on Wednesday nights at 9:30. Only 5 episodes were produced before NBC canceled it due to horrible ratings. Critics called it cynical and poorly made. Adam's Rib, 1973. This sitcom tried adapting the classic Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn film into a weekly series. It failed spectacularly. Blythe Danner starred alongside Ken Howard as a married couple who were both lawyers. The concept had potential, but the writing never found its footing. Episodes felt repetitive, the courtroom scenes dragged, and the chemistry between the leads couldn't match the original film. ABC aired it for 1 season and canceled it without fanfare. Adam's Rib is remembered now mostly because Blythe Danner later became famous in Meet the Parents and other projects. But in 1973, this show was an unqualified disaster. Critics weren't kind, audiences didn't care, and ABC quickly realized they had wasted time and money on a premise that didn't translate to television. Adapting beloved films into sitcoms rarely works. This was proof. The movie was lightning in a bottle. The show was a damp firecracker. ABC tried riding the coattails of a classic and got burned. 1 season, minimal impact, 0 legacy. Highcliffe Manor, 1979. NBC tried cashing in on the success of Dark Shadows with this gothic horror sitcom. It lasted exactly 7 episodes before getting axed. The show was set in a spooky mansion filled with strange servants and even stranger occurrences. The tone was all over the place. It couldn't decide if it wanted to be scary or funny, so it ended up being neither. The cast tried their best, but the scripts were a mess. Jokes fell flat, the horror elements felt cheesy, and NBC had 0 faith in it from the start. They burned through episodes quickly and canceled it in April 1979. Highcliffe Manor is one of those concepts that sounds interesting on paper but collapses in execution. Gothic horror works, sitcoms work. Mashing them together without a clear vision produces garbage. Critics savaged it, viewers ignored it, and NBC quietly pretended it never happened. The show is almost impossible to find now. No DVD release, no streaming, just a forgotten relic of NBC's desperation to find the next big thing. Making It, 1979. ABC tried riding the disco wave with Mackin' It, a sitcom about a young guy who dreams of becoming a star disco dancer. David Naughton played the lead and even sang the theme song, which became a minor hit. That was the only successful part of the show. Makin' It premiered in February 1979 and lasted 9 episodes before ABC canceled it. The show was a blatant attempt to cash in on Saturday Night Fever, but it had none of that film's grit or authenticity. The writing was lightweight, the characters were paper thin, and the disco craze was already fading by the time the show aired. ABC scheduled it on Friday nights at 8 p.m., a death slot for a show aimed at young adults. Nobody tuned in. The ratings were dismal, and ABC pulled the plug in March 1979 after realizing they had bet on the wrong trend. Naughton went on to star in An American Werewolf in London, which was a much better career move. Makin' It is remembered now as a punchline, a desperate network trying to capitalize on a cultural moment that had already passed. Turnabout, 1979. This sitcom starred Sharon Gless and John Schuck as a married couple who magically switch bodies. Yes, really. The concept came from a 1931 novel and had been adapted into a film in 1940. NBC thought it would work as a 1979 sitcom. It didn't. Turnabout aired for 7 weeks in early 1979 before NBC canceled it. The body-swapping premise had comedic potential, but the execution was clumsy. Episodes relied on tired gender stereotypes jokes that felt dated even then. Gless and Schuck did their best with weak material, but they couldn't save it. The show aired opposite tough competition and never found an audience. NBC cut its losses quickly and moved on. Turnabout is mostly forgotten now, except by fans of Sharon Gless, who went on to much bigger success with Cagney and Lacey. The concept would be recycled endlessly in later films and TV shows, usually with better results. But in 1979, NBC's version television was a misfire. Critics didn't care, viewers didn't watch, and the network erased it from the schedule as fast as possible. Busting Loose, 1977. CBS gave this sitcom a shot in 1977, and it limped to 24 episodes before getting canceled. Adam Arkin starred as a young engineer who leaves his parents' home to live on his own in New York. The premise sounds simple enough, but the show never developed a strong identity. It wasn't edgy enough to compete with Norman Lear's shows. It wasn't wholesome enough to attract family audiences. It just existed in a bland middle ground that satisfied nobody. The writing was mediocre, the situations were forgettable, and CBS didn't promote it aggressively. Busting Loose aired for one season and vanished without making any cultural impact. Adam Arkin later became a respected character actor, but this early starring role did nothing for his career. The show is barely remembered now. No reruns, no nostalgia, just another failed sitcom that proved breaking away from home isn't inherently interesting television. CBS tried capturing the spirit of young independence and fumbled it completely. One season, zero legacy. Busting Loose earned its place on this list by being aggressively mediocre and immediately forgettable. So there you have it. 15 sitcoms that crashed and burned faster than a disco ball at Studio 54. Some had big stars, others had massive budgets, a few even had decent concepts, but all of them failed to connect with audiences and got canceled before anyone could remember their theme songs. The 70s were ruthless. Networks would pull shows mid-season without blinking. If you bombed, you were gone. No second chances, no farewell episodes, just a quick cancellation and a replacement. Which one of these failures do you think had the most potential? Drop a comment and let's argue about it. Some of these shows deserve to die. Others maybe got robbed. You decide.